I don't see it on the channel. Leonard, you said you started. I don't see it appearing on the channel.
Oh, I mean, I think the vaccine is coming around. My sister works in a hospital. She's a nurse, and she just got an email today actually saying that all nurses have to take the vaccine. They're making it available to the nurses in that hospital. So I think hopefully soon it'll kind of start dying down, and the vaccine will come out, and soon enough we'll all be good.
Yeah, I hope so.
Leonard, it's not coming through that you started. It doesn't say that we're live.
No. You have an antique TV behind you.
I do?
Yeah.
Oh,
over
is that
your left shoulder?
Left shoulder. Oh, I don't know. Oh, that's a vent.
That's a vent?
Because I think so. I don't even know.
It looks like a television.
I believe it's. Yeah, I believe it's a vent.
Okay, and we're live.
Okay, we're live.
Okay, thank you for joining us today on Kerberos Roundtable Discussions on the KRTD Media Network. Here with us today we have Jeff Carr, former Mayor Pro Tem Eagle Nest, New Mexico, two-time governors, lieutenant governor race, and you were on the school board, I believe. And then we also have, sorry, I didn't get my notes in front of me. We also have Yehudis Gottesfeld, who ran for New York's 17th congressional district with the Conservative Party. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
So today we're going to talk a little bit about the election. We're going to get your thoughts. So before we get into anything, we'll start with you, Yehudis. Let's get your initial thoughts on the election.
On the election, well, I think the official results aren't in. It looks like they will be soon, hopefully, and I guess we'll see the results on that. But I think there's definitely a lot of discourse, as most of us have seen. And at the end of the day, which either side we're on, I think we all want fair elections. And so I hope that the process goes through. We make sure that our election integrity is in place, and whoever the winner is declared the winner, and we can go forth with our new president or the same president that we've had.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm not sure what to say, huh? That doesn't leave me a lot. What we have experienced is unlike any in history, and it's been quite fascinating, terrifying, I think, to some people, and not so terrifying to others. I have friends up here who are very conservative, and they think the revolution is going to take place. And if Trump isn't the one, and I don't think so. It's hard to judge when you've gone through a period gone through an election, and even two different elections. Even the 2016 election was kind of strange historically. And so I think we're going to see, I think it's obvious that President-elect Biden will be the next president. And just for your information, I didn't vote for him, and I didn't vote for Trump either, but I am not very happy either way, to tell you the truth. And it's, but it's going to be what it is, and it's going to be interesting to see how people are going to react. It's going to be really interesting to see what Biden does. He basically said nothing fundamental would change, and I believe him. I don't think much is going to change.
I definitely agree that this is a novel election cycle, and we've seen nothing like it before. And it's actually encouraging to see so many Americans come out and want to be involved and get involved in politics and learn about who's representing them and really have a say. And I think that at the end of the day, it's really Americans that make up America. And it's, you know, seeing so many people get involved and knowing that America, we're resilient. You know, we come around and we'll always manage to be okay. And, you know, I think at the end of the day, it's really the Americans that are going to push forward into whichever, you know, president we have. It's the Americans that are going to keep us going forward and keep us up.
So let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at this from the perspective of let's take a look at it from the perspective that Biden's going to be the next president. The right is saying that he's far left. Progressives are saying he's too far right. So let's try to get down to that. So Jeff, I know that you're more on the progressive end. So where do you see Biden?
Could we just not I mean, we could definitely talk about, you know, whether Biden's too far on the left or too far on the right. But I don't feel very comfortable saying that, assuming that he's the next president. He might very well be, right? And it looks like it's going in that trajectory, but he isn't yet. So I prefer kind of, you know, going off the conversation of, you know, as opposed to predicting results.
So let's get to that. I'm going to start with Jeff.
Yeah, I've lived long enough to know that nothing's for certain, you know, until it's all over, and that's true. Yeah, you know, and if I don't gamble, but if I was to gamble, I know who I would probably gamble on, who was going to be the next president. So is he conservative or not, or is he some crazy left-wing commie? You know, it's really funny. I've been involved in the Democratic Party for a long time. I'm no longer a Democrat, and but it's if you look at his record, he has a very conservative voting record in the U.S. Senate. If you look at his foreign policy when he was with when he was with Obama, his foreign policy really wasn't that different from George W. Bush's. Bomb people every day, kill people every day. They hired Wall Street for everything. I really see very little difference between the George W. Bush administration and the Obama administration in a lot of ways, except he's maybe nicer. Maybe he speaks a little better, does speak better, you know. And as far as Biden is concerned, it looks like he's going to continue the legacy of Obama. And regretfully so, I supported him twice, Obama, and was been disappointed twice. I don't remember a president in my lifetime I wasn't disappointed in, to tell you the truth. And it's what we need is strong, bold leadership. And a lot of the ideas on the progressive side are very palatable to the conservative side, you know, and because if you tell people what Medicare for all is, they go, yeah, that sounds great. And 70% of the people in this country support it, including a huge chunk of Republicans. And it is fiscally conservative, you know, so there's a lot of things on the far left I consider to be very conservative. And if more than half of the people support something, it's not crazy and it's not radical. You know, Trump had some great ideas when he was running. Unfortunately, he didn't fulfill hardly any of them, and that's mainly on trade. And when he had a chance to do something about NAFTA, he didn't do hardly anything. And, you know, that was disappointing. And in some ways, Trump, when you look at trade, he's more liberal than Biden is, you know. And when you look at the trade issues, those trade issues are some of the things that are the most important to the working class people in this country. All of our jobs leaving for overseas. I don't think that's going to change much. So I see Biden as leaning right and middle of the road on some issues. On some of the social issues, he'll be fine with people. And that's really the main difference between the Democratic and Republican Party right now, are the social issues. When you look at the economic issues, which are the most important issues, they're pretty much the same.
So I would disagree a little bit. I think on the economic issues, we're more different than on the social issues. I think on the social issues, the Republican Party is kind of becoming more progressive, or whatever you want to say. I think more accepting. But I mean, I was the chairwoman of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee at Columbia University. So I think on the social issues, a lot of us agree on. We want to promote more inclusion. But I think on the economic issues, we kind of differ. And one similarity, which I will definitely 100% agree with, that we have on the far left and far right, is I think we both support freedom. And I think how it manifests and how it plays out in the policies for which it plays out, I think at our core, I do believe that we all want freedom for everybody. And I think we do believe that that's the best way forward. And I might be wrong on this, but I do believe that, in a lot of the protests and the noise and voices that we're hearing, a lot of people are speaking out in different ways, but speaking out for freedom, which is, it's just nice and good to hear. I think in terms of Biden, it's a little bit difficult to say which way we're going to go. If you were listening to the debates, and his speeches, he's kind of gone back and forth on certain issues. Fracking has kind of gone one way and the other. So, I think issues that affect different areas and certain federal issues as well. It's really anyone's guess which way he'll go. I think we can in some way look at his record. On the other hand, who his team is. He's putting together a team now. That's also very significant in determining which way he's going to end up going. But I do hope he does have a more of a conservative demeanor. And I do hope that we kind of stay more on the moderate path the issues that kind of weren't completely settled come to a place where everybody can be in agreement with, or at least, okay with, and not rioting or screaming out because of it.
I do want to get both your opinions on this. He did talk about having Republicans in his cabinet at one point. I want to get both your responses to that. Start with you, Yehudis.
I definitely think it's a good idea. I think at the end of the day, bipartisanship, however you want to look at it, there are Republicans and Democrats that we really do agree on many, many things. At the end of the day, when you're meeting someone, the first thing you ask them is not whether they're, Republican or Democrat. That may be the last thing you ask them. You may ask them about their beliefs, about, what they support. And I think a lot of us really care about the same thing. And I think it's good to have perspectives from the Republican and the Democrat side at all times. And, it kind of helps for an argument and helps to really flush out a picture and a solution forward. And as we see, the country really is divided. I wouldn't say it's a hard divide. I wouldn't say, we're enemies, but we do lie on two different sides of the aisle. And so I think having people with from both sides of the aisle explaining the positions and what really matters to us, not just the noise of the media, but what really the issues are and what we're really concerned about. And I think, how we can go about coming up with solutions that both sides are okay about, that we understand don't hurt our families, that, we understand is the right way forward, is going to help everyone in this country and provide everyone with the ability to take care of their families and build a better future. So I definitely think it's a good idea. I think that it's really the way, especially if we want to, start. Well, I mean, we don't really know what the story is with the riots and, how to quiet them. But I think just in terms of policies, I think it's a good idea to hear both sides out and come, moderate and come up with a solution where both sides would be happy.
Yeah.
Well, I know that President Obama had Gates, Secretary of Defense. He was a Republican from Texas. And there may be a few other times, I cannot remember any other time where one party has had different people. You know, Trump certainly didn't. George W. Bush certainly did not. George H.W. Bush may have, but it's and it's not just part. You know, when you look at party, the name. You know, when you put the big R or the big D behind the name, that doesn't tell you much. You know, it doesn't tell you a whole lot. Rahm Emanuel is being looked at, and I'd rather have almost any Republican except for him. You know, but I don't. So I look. You got to really look at the people. But I really don't think it's a good idea. Joe Biden's idea that he can reach across the aisle, he never has really been able to. You can always point at bills. Bernie Sanders worked with Republicans quite often on certain bills. And under the current political climate, that's probably maybe the only thing you're going to get done. And if the Republicans maintain control of the Senate, anything that they want to get done, unless it's something they want, it's not going to happen. And unless it can be done by executive order, it's not going to happen most likely. And what we really need in this country is a complete overhaul of our system. All of our systems are failing us. And they're failing us because we failed those systems. And I'm talking about the criminal justice system, our education system. I taught for 27 years. In most cases, we taught, kids are taught the basics of what they need, and with the limited resources that we're given and all the other factors that go on in our society, it's amazing that education has done as well as it has. We're 26th in spending per pupil worldwide. Look, our environmental systems, how we get energy, oil. I'm sorry. I'm going to get off the subject, and I'll stay on the subject.
Go ahead. I'm an environmental engineer. This is kind of my specialty.
Okay.
I'm to hear what you're about to say.
So I always taught my students, and I told people when I was out there campaigning, I said, "Do you know what saved the forest in Europe? It was oil. It was kerosene. It was coal." Those things, and then we had, and that got us to a certain point through the Industrial Revolution, and then we moved on, but now we should have moved on a long time ago. And we are so far behind where we should be as far as where we get our energy from and how we produce it and how we distribute it. Almost every system going on, everything that's taking place in this world, if you look at the COVID system, what happened with COVID, and I'm mentioning it, it brings out all the weaknesses in our system worldwide, and brings out in particular the weakness of our own health system, which is the worst in the industrialized world. In spite of what people try to tell you, it's the worst. I can get better healthcare in Cuba, and they're a third world country. That's ridiculous. It's the idea that we didn't, and we've also seen the importance of leadership. Without leadership in this country, when we're going through a crisis, it's just going to make things worse, which happened and which continues to happen. And the only thing we can do, I'm also a veteran. Only thing we can do in some circumstances is mitigate them, but it requires great leadership until everything falls apart and everything's overrun. And we're that close. We're always that close, and you don't realize it. You think, oh, we're fine. Everything will keep going just like it is. Oh, nothing can stop it. It's too powerful. Well, it's not. It's really not. And if you look at history, you see civilizations fall and crumble and come back up again. And we're at a tipping point in this country, not just environmentally, but in every way you can possibly imagine. Our financial systems, everything. We are living in a 19th century world in our systems. And we need to completely rethink it. If you look at these young people that are coming up, like you too, but they're finding out ways to take the plastic out of the ocean, and they're looking at things in a way, when Tesla looked at the energy that he was producing, and he was shut down for, by Thomas Edison and other powers that be. We need Teslas. We need young people, and we need people who are thinking way outside the box and to solve the problems that we need to solve in this world. And if you look at things, oh, he's a Republican, so he stinks, or he's a Democrat and he stinks. If you don't look at it, that's a human being. And if I explain to him the situation and what's going on and say, hey, let's put our heads together and let's solve this problem together and forget about all this political bullshit. Can I say that?
Sure.
So really, let's forget about it. I have a daughter that's your age, probably. She's 29. I want her to have a nice, long, healthy, productive life. And I want all of you to have a nice, long, productive, and happy life, not just survival. Because it seems like right now, we're in survival mode, and we need to look past that, and we need to look at bringing the leadership forward that needs to bring people together. And then that brings the other point is that I'm on here talking to you because you're not mainstream media. I don't think, I might go on mainstream media. I don't know how long they'd have me on, but it's, and I'm a really nice guy and I can say things a nice way, but I speak my mind. And what we're doing now is killing us. It's killing our children and everyone around us. And if we don't do something quickly to change it, and we don't get out of this 19th century way of thinking, then we're done for.
Yeah, I actually want to say something because coming from the science world, I completely agree with you that we need innovation, and innovation is what's going to pull us forward. And sometimes conflict does build innovation, but I think innovation in general, right? We need to progress forward. We are doing what they've done. I believe the train station in New York City is like from 1910 or 1920 or something. Right, they're still using the systems. We need to progress forward. We need innovation, and we need an improvement in so many areas of our life. And the way that's going to go forward is through science and collaboration and business investments and things like that. There's one thing though that was actually interesting to notice from the scientific world I don't know which way Joe Biden's going to take it, but during the Trump presidency, we actually saw a difference from the Obama presidency, whereas the Obama presidency, they decided what the innovation was going to be, and they very heavily invested in that. And that's fine, and that field really, grew. But there's so many other forms of energy that we have that we can and we should invest in, and that we can build, right? So you have solar energy, you have wind energy, you have hydro, you have biomass, there's so many different forms of energy that are coming out. You have nuclear, things that are developing, and things that we really do need a diverse portfolio of all of them, because if one of them goes down, we need the other ones to at least be able to kick in, right? So that we don't all end up in a blackout. So we really do need a diverse portfolio. One of, whatever reason you want to give for it, one of the things that did happen in the Trump presidency was that the money allocated for investing in different technologies and innovations ended up being diversified. There was no specific one area that was really a lot of effort was put into focusing on. And so what ended up happening was you end up seeing there were innovations in really all areas, and money was given to all areas to advance it and to advance the research, which I believe is good for the country, and Republicans and Democrats, in the science world. We're very, very happy about it. And I think we saw improvements. It takes a number of years for research to really come out into the world and for everyone else to see the effects of it. But you can definitely see the effects of it from down here that, in terms of energy and technology, we've done so much within the past 4 years of just advancing that to create a better future.
Now,
We went way away from that topic, huh?
If you start talking about science, technology, energy, you get me going.
Okay. That's okay.
take a look here. Guys, just checking the chat to see if we had anyone saying anything in the chat. No one saying anything in the chat, really. Okay. So, look at other reactions. So I believe 2 people were announced for the Biden cabinet. I think it was Secretary of State and Treasury Secretary. I think. We don't
Treasury
have,
Secretary and I think Secretary of State as well. And I don't know either one of those people very well, and I haven't studied them yet. But you know, did you want us to comment on them?
Yeah, sorry. I've heard that they've recently been picked, and I think people are in the talks. I think there was someone that was just picked yesterday, but I haven't really looked into them officially yet. He's still working on building it. I believe he said before or after Thanksgiving,
I have a question.
he'll have a more comprehensive list.
Yeah, I've only seen. Yeah, there's only been 2 announcements as of now, as I've seen, and they still haven't.
Yeah, Biden had mentioned that before or after Thanksgiving, around Thanksgiving, he's going to come out with. It might be after Thanksgiving, but he said a more comprehensive list.
I have 2 different questions for both of you. So this time I have 2 different questions. So I'm gonna ask Jeff. I'm gonna ask you the Treasury Secretary. A lot of progressive groups were pushing for. I know Elizabeth Warren was one of the ones they were pushing for. They were pushing for. I think some of them were actually pushing for Katie Porter. I think, and there were a few others, but neither one of them got that position. And they picked somebody who did something progressive once. I think by freezing Wells Fargo's accounts at one point, and then the other time they did something less. So I want to get your reaction on. Did you think that those people were seriously being considered the more progressive choices, or do you think they were on the list kind of to look good, make it look like they're really considering it?
No, so in politics, you put a whole bunch of people on the list and you tell them how wonderful they are and how hard you worked at considering them and everything that they're worth. And oh gosh, it looks like we need to go in this really lame direction in the middle. We're not going to make anybody upset on the right or the left. We're not going to make anybody happy on the right or the left. It's just, we're just going to walk the middle of the road. And what I learned from walking the middle of the road is you get run over, and that's a trite phrase, but there's a lot of truth to it. Biden's got 40 lobbyists so far in the mix-up. I didn't expect anything less from him. He's attached at the hip to the credit card companies in Delaware.
Senator from NBNA, if you remember.
Yeah. I don't expect. I expect he's just going to be milquetoast all the way. It's going to be. I don't want to make anybody upset, and I don't want to make anybody angry, and I guess I really don't want to make anybody happy either. But it's as long as you're not too angry. If I put Grandma in charge, will that be okay? Grandma will make us cookies. It's really, it's just disheartening and disappointing. I remember talking to a black man years ago when I was talking about racism and racist, and I know what does that have to do with this, right? But it does. And if you get to the end of the story, which is real quick, he said, I'd rather have a KKK member talking to me. I know where he's coming from. I know what he's all about, than some milquetoast liberal, limousine liberal, who pretends to care and really could care less, And You know, I'd rather him hire somebody that's going to really go out there and work and work at finding something. We know the economic, you know, when we look at our economic issues, we have failed hand over fist. We, you know, the separation in wealth in this country is becoming to a point where it's either violent revolution or some major change is going to take place. Because when you get to a point where we got so many people unemployed, and if you don't have somebody in that treasury position that's going to work hard to create jobs for people, or to create, at least create a position in government where jobs can be created. And if we don't start punishing people for leaving and not giving them bonuses for leaving this country, we're going to continue to have this job drain in this country. And of course, right now, we, you know, because of the disease, we're suffering tremendously. And if we don't provide what the people need right now, we're losing all these small businesses. Only the big businesses are really making a big profit right now. I mean, they're making profits. They're not even losing money. The small businesses are losing money, or they're completely gone already. And it's a really sad. The small businesses employ more people in this country than anybody does, and sometimes like people don't realize that. You know, the big box stores got a huge plus. I mean, God, the robber barons would have loved this right now, because all the big businesses got $5.5 trillion, and the rest of us got $500 billion. You know, and they're doing great. They would have been doing fine anyway. You know, yeah, we'd give them some kind of incentives, you know, to keep hiring these people. But now we need a Secretary of the Treasury who's going to take the bull by the horns and do something, not just walk down the middle of the aisle and say, what can I do for you? What can I do for you? And what can I do for you, sir lobbyist? And the lobbyists need to be gone. And that is one of the biggest things that needs to be done. That is the heart of the problem. Money is the heart of the issue. If you look at any civilization, ancient Greece, ancient Rome, all of them, the British Empire, money was a big problem. Sometimes it helped. We won the American Revolution because they were losing money. We won the War of 1812 because the British were losing money. You know, so sometimes it was okay. That was okay, I guess. You know, I said, if money makes you into war, okay. But if money is your motivator to get into it, and you don't care who dies, that's a whole nother story. You know, maybe the Treasury Secretary and the Secretary of Defense should be working together. You know, it's they're the biggest part of our economy. All the money that 55% out of every dollar that we have goes into national defense. And it's actually more than that now. I think it's more like 58 cents out of every dollar, but it's a ridiculous amount. It is draining us to the end, much more than anything you could possibly imagine. What is it? We spend more than the next 7 countries combined. Canada can afford all the things that it affords. Europe can afford all the things that it affords because we provide for their defense. And that sounds a little bit like Trump, you know, but he was right on that. You know, when he came in and said NATO wasn't paying their fair share, yeah, but oh, hell no, they weren't. You know, we are. We're paying for almost all of that, and we still are. And so we need somebody that's going to come in and really look at all these things and just say, hey, that doesn't make any sense. And I wish Biden would do.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think we need somebody maybe a little bit ballsier and a little bit more connected to the people, not so much someone who's infiltrated within the government system and big businesses system. I think we could really use someone who's more from the people, connected with the people, and is really out to do and make our lives better and build a better, more equitable country. And I think kind of his background and circles could definitely hurt us.
Yeah. I don't think he'll help the Democratic Party. He's going to make it worse. He won't
I
help.
believe we used to do things like that. We had a labor secretary once who was a coal miner, and that was, I think that was like 40, 25, 35, 40 years ago. But
That had to be under FDR, probably.
I think that was FDR or around that time, but we did have a coal miner who,
Yeah.
so I want to see, do you think that we should see, this is a question to both of you, do you think that we should see more workers in the president's administrations, like someone who actually understands the plight of what's going on in these positions?
Definitely. Yeah. I think, first of all, challenges are always changing, times are always changing. I think challenges from that someone who's been in politics for 50 years may have experienced 50 years ago is different than the challenges that Americans who are currently working are experiencing. I definitely think it's beneficial to have someone from the working sector who understands whether their circles are still people within the working sector who can communicate to them about the challenges of, average person looking to open a business. You do know how challenging that is, especially if they don't have any money. You're going into accountants, lawyers, things that they may not have had the education to do themselves, and they may not have the money to hire someone else to do. I definitely think there's a lot of challenges that don't get communicated to or covered within the government, and it would be extremely beneficial if we see people who've experienced that not too long ago being in government and communicating those for the people.
I wanted to bring up the fact that New Mexico is having a special session in a few weeks, and they are going to introduce legislation for a state-owned New Mexico bank. That was on my platform when I ran for lieutenant governor. And North Dakota has had one since 1935. And look how conservative North Dakota is. Did they get rid of it? No. It must be working. And it is working, and it's providing money for small businesses and farmers and all the people who need it. We've got one of the biggest permanent funds in the United States in the state of New Mexico, and we've got billions of dollars in it. As poor a state as we are, because we're close to West Virginia in that respect, we've got all that money that we could invest in the people of New Mexico. Yeah, we could have Medicare for all in New Mexico. We could have our state bank that's investing in New Mexico. Almost all of our money is invested in New York City banks, and that's ridiculous, And it's I was responsible for many organizations changing to local banks, and we've still got some local banks. Most of them have been taken over, and even the one family-owned bank left in Taos, New Mexico, started by an Hispanic family for Hispanic families who couldn't get money from white-owned banks. But they did. They loaned it to them. But now they're so interconnected with the big banks and the whole banking system that they're not much different anymore than they are, The credit unions in this state are supporting this move. I was shocked because I and one other candidate were the only ones who talked about a state-owned bank, and I think that's a really important.
Well, I think it's dangerous giving the government more power than they already have. But I hear the concern, and I think the concern is a valid one.
Yeah, it's like, all you got to do is look at the Federal Reserve. They're super corrupt, but it's worked pretty well in North Dakota, even if you have those systems corrupt, and that brings up the issue of corruption. Corruption and lobbyists, that all goes in that same thing, because if I talk to the most diehard Trump supporter out there, and if I bring up corruption, you say, yeah, that's right, man. Yeah, we need to end this corruption. I can almost get anybody to agree, except for maybe current members of the Senate who are corrupt, and so it's
the House too. We're all there. They're all, I honestly, when I talk corruption, I think when most people talk corruption, I don't think we specify it for a party. I think there's corruption on both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. because I was a Democrat, I saw more from them than I saw from the Republicans. But I know they're not any better. I know our top Republican in
There's
this,
corruption on all sides.
it's everywhere, and we need to end it. Anyway, sorry, Shane.
Sure, let me just plug the panel that we did on November 10th. We did an anti-corruption panel on November 10th. Everybody check that out on the channel. We had about 12 different speakers from all across the spectrum. We had 2 different political organizations. We had Wolfpack that wants to get corporate money out of politics, and then we also had the Free and Equal Elections Foundation. So everybody check that video out. Sorry, I had to give myself a plug there.
All right.
But let's get back to the election. Do you think? I want to ask if anyone sees any parallels to the election of 2000 at all, with all the legal battles and the court cases. I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with the election of 2000, but there were a lot of legal battles and court cases in that election. That went on for a while. I think it's
which election again?
I said 2000.
Oh, the 2000 election, right? Yeah.
I think that's the right one.
Yeah. Are there any correlations? Yeah, I remember that quite well. I voted third party in that election too, which was amazing. I did. I thought, anyway, I don't have any regrets, but it's I don't see a lot of similarity. I saw oh gosh, darn it, how can I forget his name? Gore. Al Gore. Al Gore was he just gave up, and he won by 500,000 popular votes, and in Florida he won the votes there too on the recount. They stopped the recount. He was winning on the recount. And there was all kinds of, and there was one similarity is that they had protesters down there shouting at people trying to count, but there weren't like Arizona where they were shouting, keep voting, and in Pennsylvania, stop the vote. And I said, are you freaking kidding me? People see all this on TV now. It's not like the local news or the old ones that are covering it. That amazes me. The cult-like following that Trump seems to have, and I would probably put the cult members down at maybe a small percentage of them, the crazy ones that want to go out and kill people and things like that. But there are some similarities, except for the fact that Al Gore conceded way before he should have. To have the Supreme Court decide a presidential election is appalling. On a 5-4 political, 5 Republicans, 4 Democrats. Are you kidding me? That we should have declared our democracy dead right there. And I was no great big supporter of Al Gore and George W. Bush. He was. He got there like he's because of his daddy, but and that's a shame. That's another thing we need to end is this idea of some kind of royalty in our politics, and it's so I guess we didn't really have any royalty. Biden's kind of political royalty, I guess, because he's been in it for so long. And
Hillary Clinton, I think a lot of people viewed her like that too. I think that's why she didn't,
yes,
hurt her as well. People kind of viewed her as, our politics is about the good man getting up there saying, I want to help. I want to make a change and make this country better. Not, I'm a part of this family and we're within this circle.
Right. And that's, and to me, the heart of the problem is that, we're not, the people aren't running this country. It's Wall Street. It's the 1%, and it's the extreme. 8 billionaires, and all the new billionaires that were made that are running this country. The people in this club. Biden said he would not go after Trump. Obama said he wouldn't go after George W. Bush or Dick Cheney for anything. And Gerald Ford pardoned Nixon. I think that was a beginning of people not trusting anything in this country.
Yeah, and that's why I think, kind of looking at the differences between the two elections, I think that one of the most important things that I know we're all debating right now who's going to win, right? And that's kind of overarching debate. But I think what should be the debate, and something that I was concerned about when Hillary Clinton brought it up with Russia, and was supporting that we should be investigating, is the election integrity and the corruption, right? I think that's something that, regardless of who calls it out, regardless of what suspicions we have, should always be looked into, because there will always be people and who will try to take power greedily, against the benefit of the people. And I think regardless of who's election, the thing that should come out of it is that we have a less corrupt and a more transparent government.
Certainly hope so. The DNC cheated in the primary. It took me a long time to think that they cheated in 2016. I had a hard time believing that it was that bad. Now I believe it completely. I have no doubts, and it was a whole scale cheating on many different levels. George W. Bush cheated in Ohio in 2004. Diebold.
I think with JFK, a lot of people were talking about.
JFK and Nixon both cheated. And that's the reason Nixon didn't contest it, was because his cheating would have come out too. Definitely, they both did. And Nixon cheated all of his way through California when he became governor. He was. It's an amazing thing. I mean, of course, they've been stuffing ballot boxes since the very beginning, and people would grow a beard and then shave part of it off and go vote, and shave a little bit more and vote again. And every time they did, they got more whiskey. It was quite a thing to do. It was, it's part of our makeup, unfortunately. It's not right. We can laugh about it if it's 100 years from now, but we can't laugh about it right now. There shouldn't be any cheating going on. And the fact that we have a two-party system and we don't have a ranked choice voting in this country is the reason we end up with two idiots running for office. Excuse me, but that's how I believe it. And I know we've got good people in this country, people who are smart and ethical and intelligent and know how to be good leaders. And will we ever see them? Not as long as we have lobbyists, not as long as the big money controls everything. We have some of the worst people in our government that we've ever had. And not that it's always been great. If you look at the first 5 presidents of the United States, even the first 7, pretty darn honest people, And Andrew Jackson, you may not like him, but he was honest. He was never dishonest. He said exactly what he meant all the time. I didn't like what he did with the Indians. I didn't like what he did with some other things, but I like the fact that he got rid of the National Bank, and then he got rid of because it was corrupt, and he supported the working class people, albeit white men. But again, he was honest, and
support part of what he did, and yeah,
and having an honest person run, really difficult anymore,
I think that also, and I'd love to, hear what you think, but I think kind of that also comes from being a part of the government system, the government group circles, versus being, somebody who just really cares, like, George Washington, one of everybody for the most part, who just came up. George Washington was somebody else, humble and really, I mean, we could use more of him, but I think, somebody who comes from the people and comes out of the good of the heart, who's done work, work that we all do, and comes up for a time, not coming from because they're pushed by a party, and pushed forth in a primary and everybody else out.
Right. And in most cases, the decisions are made who runs in those old, maybe they're not smoke filled anymore, and maybe they're not all men, but they're still decided amongst a few people in a small room somewhere. And, it was like I was on my way to winning the lieutenant governorship. And as soon as they figured out really who I was, they brought somebody forward, and I was attacked, and for not for anything personal or anything, but just that I wasn't the right person. They chose someone else. They had chosen someone else to be the candidate that I found out later, but he got in trouble for sexual harassment, which actually was proved in court. It wasn't something, he was actually found guilty. It wasn't like some woman coming up and said, oh, he's sexually harassed. And the governor now, who supported him, had to let him go under threat from women's groups. And I didn't know that. I didn't know he was the chosen. I thought we chose people by votes, how stupid.
Yeah. I think you're right. I've seen that too. I've seen that too, where they chose the candidate, you look at them and you're like, really? Like, I mean, he's got a record of racism, anti-Semitism, you can go on. And, it's just like, and then they, they'll realize it and pull it down at times. But there's definitely that. And I think what's really nice about this election, and it looks like it's getting close to 6 o'clock, but I think what's really nice about this election is that we've had so many people get involved and stand up and take a stance. And I think the only way we're going to get out of this system where there's select few who choose the candidates and who choose who wins is really if people start demanding transparency and demanding that they want to get involved too, and they want to not just be at the bottom, but also take higher up positions. And, threatening that status quo of, well, maybe not threatening, but, getting involved in that group, and expanding their circles and expanding it to the public so that the public sees what's going on. And they're now held accountable to be more honest and have more transparency to the public.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's 6 o'clock. Thank you for joining us today on Kerberos Roundtable Discussions, KRTD Media Network. Also, everyone be sure to join our new Discord server, which is in the description link. So we can stop the stream now. You guys, are we stopped? I don't know. We're still live.